When you think of a music form called rockabilly, you have to include the name of Carl Perkins. He wrote Blue Suede Shoes, and there's a reason he's in the Rockabilly Hall of Fame and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Carl passed away in 1998 at the age of 65, and he came here for Expo 86, where we conducted this interview.
Carl, in the beginning, you made history in the music world by having Blue Suede Shoes hit all three charts.
Up until 1956, Red, they'd been a few songs crossover from the country to the pop, and ironically enough, there were some pop songs that was easing over into the country. I can't name them right now, but I can tell you the country guy who was starting to his songs, not his particular records, but Hank Williams, with things like Cheating Heart.
Frankie Lane did in the pop charts.
There you go. And see, they were starting to be recorded, or covered rather, as they say in the business, by the pop people. You had the country and western charts, you had the pop charts, and then you had rhythm and blues. And up until 1956, no one record had ever been number one in all three categories at the same time. And somebody told me after 56, or in that year, right after my song Blue Suede Shoes, my record of it really went to number one in all three categories of music. They said that Las Vegas would probably given you 50 to 1 odds. It never would have happened.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you something that I think, and I've thought this now, I've had plenty of time, 30 years to think about it. I really do, because after the Blue Suede started, I started working with some of the black artists, like Chuck Berry, Pastor Domino. And I remember the first thing Chuck Berry ever said to me was in Columbia, South Carolina, and it was the first night of a tour that I was going to work with Chuck. And I really liked his stuff. You know, Maybelline, his songwriting was just really super great. I detected some white rhythm in Chuck Berry. Chuck detected some black in what was happening at Sun Records, which is exactly what happened. We took country songs, just put the black rhythm, that black southern gospel, amen, amen, as you know, as Elvis did with Blue Moon of Kentucky was his first record, a Bill Monroe classic, you know.
That's right.
So Chuck said to me, I heard him coming down the hall, he said, I want to meet Carl Perkins. Yeah, that sounds like Chuck Berry. And the door opened, my brother Clayton opened the door. He said, that's Carl, sitting right there. And Chuck said, Shona. I got up and I said, Chuck Berry, man, nice to meet you. He said, you know, I thought you were one of us. I said, well, man, when it comes to music, is there any difference? I never wondered about it. When I drop a quarter or a nickel in that jukebox, I want to hear Blueberry Hill. I want to hear Maybelline.
Right.
He told me after I met him a day or two after that, he said, you know, and this was back when the segregation thing in the South was, you know, we'd stay at different hotels. I mean, in the South, you had to. That was just the way it was. He said, you know, we keep on hitting at this music. We'll liable to do more with the segregation than the government will ever do. And I thought, through the years, we've talked about it. And I think the music did have a lot to do with it. Because your redneck in the South, man, like I say, he wanted to hear Blueberry Hill, and he didn't care what color the man was that was singing. I think it had a lot to do with it.
Carl, fate wasn't really shining on you when Blue Suede Shoes hit. Now, I'd like you to tell me in your words the story, but the way I got it very briefly was you were on your way to New York to do a major television network appearance, and you had an accident. What happened?
Right. Let me go back just a little, the night before the accident. I played in North Fork, Virginia. I never will forget it, Red. A fellow by the name of Sheriff Tex Davis promoted a show there, and he said, he came in my dressing room. He said, Carl, I got a door open for you. He said, watch him and tell me what you think. So I stood beside the curtain there and listened. And he said, now he's going to do this new song. And I said, really, be honest with you. The boy said, "Bee-bop-a-loo, see my baby." I said, "Uh-huh. I think it's a hit song. I like the way it was Gene Vincent."
Mm.
That night, we crawled in a car that was loaned to me from a Cadillac dealer in Memphis, Tennessee. Sam Phillips, the guy who owns Sun, made the statement, "The first cat that sells me 1,000,000 records, I'm giving him a new Fleetwood." Well, Blue Suede Shoes had done that. This was March the 21st, 1956, the night I played North Fork. The next morning, about daylight, I was asleep in the back of the limousine that they let us borrow because the Cadillac hadn't come in. And my brother Jay was in the back with me. There was the driver and my brother Clayton and W.S. Holland, the boy who plays drums with Johnny Cash now. Those same three guys were the guys that was on the original record, Blue Suede Shoes. I woke up 3 days later in a hospital in Wilmington, Delaware. We were within 85 miles of New York. The show we were going to be on that Saturday, this was a Thursday morning, we were going to be on the Perry Como show.
Perry Como.
Mm-hmm. And the following week, I had Ed Sullivan booked. We had the major variety shows already in can. But going back a little, I woke up on Sunday afternoon. The first thing I heard laying in that hospital flat on my back was, "That's one of them laying over yonder." They put me in a room with about 4 or 5 guys. The little hospital was full. And I can never outlive the feeling I had when it broke my neck and I couldn't turn my head, but I was staring at that ceiling and it was ringing in my ears. This guy said, I think he's the one that wrote it. I think he's the one that wrote that Blue Suede Shoes." And he said there was 2 or 3 killed. And I started screaming, and a nurse ran in and she said, "You're going to be all right, Mr. Perkins." But they said later that she gave me a shot, and I went back to sleep, only to find out that I did lose a brother. I was hurt real bad. Another fellow was hit. The car we hit, he was killed, and it was a low point in my life, Red. It really was. I laid there and I talked to the good Lord. You know, I got very close. I look back at it now. I count it as a stepping stone, as a reminder. Look out, boy. I'm not ready for you to have another hit record. Mm-hmm. I want you later on, Perkins. And I started counting what I had left. I had a woman, a good wife, and 4. Well, at that time I had 2 children. One of them was born when I was in the hospital up there. She couldn't come to the hospital, but anyway, I watched Elvis do his first network show from a hospital bed.
Yeah.
And they had me in a cast from my chin down to my waist. And one of the shows that he did, I think the first network that Elvis did was maybe Jackie Gleason.
Yeah,
show.
the Dorsey Brothers part of the Gleason show.
Right, that's right. That was the first. And he said, "I want to do my new record." And he said, "One for the money?" And I broke out of the cast. I said, "Oh, there it goes." But I found out after Elvis died that they wanted Elvis to cut that song. They, being RCA Victor, wanted him to cut that song right after my record came out. And he said, "That's my friend. He's got a hit, and I'll cut it. I'll do it later. I love the song." I never knew that until Elvis was dead. And my record had already peaked and started sliding down, and he, of course, took it, and it was on an EP, and through the years, Elvis had it in 5 or 6 albums. And
you must get royalties from that, though, Carl, do you? for writing it?
Son, that's the reason I punch out. That song has fed me and a bunch of hungry children, aunts and uncles. I paid off more 37 Chevrolets than any guy in Tennessee. It's been very, very good. Life in general, it really has.
It has been good, Carl. And not only that, then when the Beatles invasion came, they were big fans of yours.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
They covered your material with things like Matchbox. And
Sure did.
You ever meet the boys?
Yeah. My boys were in school back then. Of course, this record of I Want to Hold Your Hand, I mean, every kid on the block was going, oh, yeah, I want to hold your hand. And they was bringing home pictures of these. I said, well, they look like girls. You know, them boys' hair's too long. Really, but I liked what they was doing because I was detecting some old Sun records. And I said, wait a minute, they ain't before them cats. That's what we were, you know? And I thought I heard some simplicity in that guitar of George's. You know, I said, wait a minute. Then Stan, the oldest son, came home one day and he had a Beatle book. There's some boy in his class said, he said, Daddy, them long-haired boys you talking about, them Beatles? I said, yeah. He said, George Harrison loves you. I said, well, he don't know nothing about me, boy. They're in England. He said, he does. It's right here in the book. And it said that before they became the Beatles, they were called the Silver Beatles, and that George Harrison, they were notorious among each other to give each other nicknames. And George, one of the other guys, called him Carl Harrison. Yeah, he said, I love Carl Perkins, just call me Carl. And he and I have talked about it since then. That really actually happened. Well, but then I went over there in '64 with Chuck Berry. And I did a tour, and it was just great. I mean, it was packed every night. I really started not to go. I told my wife, I said, they don't know me over there, but it was good money. And I was back in my drinking days, and I was very bad. And I thought, well, I'll get over there, and I mess up. I just don't need to go. I was telling Carl that this great lady and those 4 children, something said, she believes in you, man, go. It's probably the greatest move I ever made in my life. I crawled on that little plane in Jackson, Tennessee. I went alone with my guitar and my memories of home. And I got over there and I did the tour with him, with Chuck. After the tour, I was invited to a party. I started not to go. I said, man, I got to go to Tennessee in the morning. This was the promoter of the show. And he said, you might ought to go to this one. I said, okay, but I can't stay long. So I walked in this castle, and I saw a dude standing at the end of a table like we don't have in Tennessee, man. It had whole hogs. The kind that put the apple in the mouth, you know, turkeys with them little socks on their, you know, where their feet used to be. I mean, it was a feast. And I told the guy that, the booking agent, I said, that boy at the end of that table looks just like one of them little Beatles, that Ringo. He said, I got news for you, Perkins. That is Ringo. At that point, Ringo spotted us. We just walked in the hall of this big, beautiful mansion, and he stepped up in a chair and he tapped on it high-priced silver with a spoon or something. Everybody hushed. He said, ladies and gentlemen, he's here, Mr. Carl Perkins. I looked around to see who they was talking about.
Yeah, right.
But the party was for me, and I wound up sitting on the floor with a rhythm guitar, and there sat John, Paul, George, and Ringo on a couch like this, asking me, George said, how did you kick off a right string with the wrong yo-yo? And he was blowing my mind. I'd forgotten that was an old Sun song. He said, no, that's not hardly the way, but that's close enough. He knew every lick I ever heard. And that night they invited me to recording studio at Abbey Road, yeah. And I remember I got back to the hotel where I was staying, and I called my wife in Tennessee, and I said, tell my boys, them little long-haired boys they was talking about, I'm going to watch them record tonight, and Val, I'll be a day late. She said, Carl, I'm so thankful. I knew you'd do it. Without me knowing what was going to happen, these guys, when I got to the studio, they were there. They sent their limousine after me. Of course, I was 2 hours early sitting down in the lobby of this little hotel where I was staying. A cat with white gloves and tails on parked that long car out there, which we have in Tennessee, but you know, you follow funerals with them. You don't ride around them. And he said, I came for Mr. Perkins. I said, you got him, horse. He said, sir. I said, you got him, horse. I sat in the back seat of that car. The things that ran through my old rockabilly mind, man, here you are, London, England, successful tour, met what looks like the hottest group in America, the #1 song here in America at that time. You're a lucky man, Carl. I really was. And then when I got to the studio, Ringo said, Mr. Perkins, you care if I record some of your songs? I said, you want me to write you some? He said, no, I really would like to do, honey, don't. I said, man, go at it. And I never forget, he said, hey, guys, you don't care. He got right on the drum. They didn't make over 2 passes at it till they had it. They went right, they cut Matchbox, they cut George Sing, Everybody's Trying to Be My Baby. Now really try, if you can, to imagine an old broken down alcoholic sitting in a chair in London, England, hearing his old songs that he didn't know anybody knew. And there was a group singing them back. And I listened to the playbacks with George Martin. I shook, my soul shook. I left England with a complete different attitude. These little guys gave me some strength that I needed at that time. I walked around Jackson, Tennessee. I told those people, I said, I owe you, but I'm gonna pay you, man. I got some songs cut with the Beatles. It was beautiful. I did get to pay the people. I did get caught back up. I did know that there was a place for Carl Perkins. And the next year I joined Johnny Cash's group, and
it was the second wind.
That's right.
It was the second wind.
So John and I quit our habits the same day. I threw a whiskey bottle in the Pacific Ocean. Johnny Cash, as his Man in Black book revealed, the man threw his pills away. And I stood and watched Johnny Cash become the superstar. I knew in my heart that it was there. John and I were very close back at Sun Records because I didn't know him until he came to Sun. But we found out that we grew up just the Mississippi River divided. I was a sharecropper, he was too.
That's right.
Right over in Arkansas. So John and I were really good friends, and then going through the 10 years, standing beside him and playing for the Kings, the Queens, the Prisons, the Lonely. I watched a man standing flat-footed and become a giant, and I was with him all the way. I love him to this day, and I always will. It was great for me. It took every day to bring me to Vancouver this afternoon. It's been beautiful. It really has.
But Carl, one thing, you too are a giant. People like the Beatles, and before that, and maybe we could just wrap up talking about this man who loved your music in the 50s, Rick Nelson, who I understand from looking at the album liner notes on your Class of 55 album, was on the session in September. Yeah. He was a fan in the early days by recording your material.
Yeah, he was. Pardon me. Back to the car wreck. I didn't get to make the Como show until 4 or 5 months later. When I did get to be on it, it really was too late. I mean, the song had gone, the good-looking boys, with the pretty hair, and I was born looking a lot like Mr. Ed the Mule, and I knew that. I was married, kids.
Come on.
Oh yeah, come on, I really was. I mean, I followed Elvis, and there was a time or two. The booking agents say, "Well, Carl, your song's hotter than Elvis." I had followed him a few times. He'd open. This has happened. But they wasn't really no following him. I tried to tell him, I said, you better let me go on and get through because he's going to ring them out, as the song says. He jerked them up and rang them out and hung them out to dry. But at any rate, when I did the show, Ozzie and Harriet Nelson was on, and she, Ricky's mother, Harriet Nelson, told me, said, little Ricky loves you. Said he loves you. He loves Stopping the Blues. I said, that's Bopping the Blues. That was the record that I came back after Blue Suede Shoes. That was the first one. And she said, oh, he loves you. He's driving us crazy singing that Bopping the Blues. He did get one of his first sessions. That song was on it. It was later released. But you know, Red, I had read and heard through the years. Ricky Nelson, a lot of my friends that would work with him and know him, they said, boy, you ought to you ought to just go to California and see him. He loves you, Carl, and he talks about you. I never met him until this past September when he flew the plane that he died in to Memphis.
Class of 55, the album, Carl, bringing together after 30 years some of the great talents in business, Roy Orbison, Jerry Lee Lewis, Johnny Cash, and yourself. It must have been an emotional experience.
Red, I'll tell you, I got a phone call at my home in Jackson, Tennessee. My wife said, Carl, it's Chip's moment. I said, well, I don't know, but one, he's a great producer in Nashville. You know, he produced Willie Nelson was always on my mind. And Waylon, I mean, he'd just come off of the top album last year, The Highwayman, you know, and so I went to the phone, and it was really Chips, and he asked me, he said, Carl, I want to go back to Sun Studio, and I want to do an album with you, with Johnny Cash, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Roy Orbison. I said, well, good luck. How are you going to get four old broken down rockabillys to sing together? It'll never happen. He said, let me worry about that. Would you like to do it? I said, I'd love it. I would really love to do it. So, it wasn't a week till he called me back and told me when it's going to be, which was like a week later. He said, well, it's all set up, ready to go. And man, I'll tell you, it was emotional, from down to tears to getting tickled and having to stop the tape. It was just a special week for every one of us. I remember I walked in. Of course, they had a news meter in the traffic block in front of the little old studio, and when I was there, I thought that thing was so big, because I'd never been in a studio. And I remember I said to Cash, I said, John, this baby drew up, didn't it? It looked so little compared to the way it looked when we were there. But from the minute we started playing, we had a little jam session, just Jerry Lee sat down at the piano and the camera started rolling, and it just had that feel. I felt good about it. Then I found out how Moman was going to do it. He was going to let us do a couple of songs piece and then put us together. But all the time, when the others were singing, I mean, pardon me, when Jerry Lee was doing like 16 Candles, I'm sitting on the floor, you know, right beside of him, and I said, you got it, man, don't lose it, you got it. And he did, you could feel it. It was there.
You can feel the whole session when you listen to it.
You could feel it. And then, you know, the news got out, they said, Ricky's coming with his airplane, Fogerty's going to be with him. I don't know, the boy picked up anybody that wanted to come to Memphis to that, they called it the landmark session. And Ricky Nelson walked in that studio the last night, and that good-looking thing, man, he walked straight to me, and I put my hand out, and he said, that won't do, and he hugged me, and I hugged him. We talked. I said, Rick, I really appreciate through these years, man, you're doing my song, Bopping the Blues. He said, oh, man, I've never done it like you did. You know, one of those things. You did, and I'm sorry we haven't met before now, but it's a pleasure to meet you, and I really did admire the way Ricky Nelson had his own way of doing what he did.
That's true, underrated, but you're absolutely right.
Listen, you play a Ricky Nelson record, you hear Ricky Nelson, he ain't trying to copy nobody. I mean, he really had his own style.
Tight band behind him, too.
Let me tell you, James Burton, he could do without 3 or 4 fingers and still outpick any of us. He and I talked. I said, Ricky, you know, I really would like to work some dates with you. He said, really? I said, oh man, I'd love to open the show. He said, I'll never forget it, Red. He said, Carl Perkins won't open no show for Ricky Nelson. I said, well, I'd work hard. I'd try. He said, I mean, I'll open them for you. Really, we were going to work some together this year.
But the tragedy prevented it.
Then it was over, you know. But it's kind of soul shaking to think that for 30 years I never touched his hand, and then I did, and then it was over. But it's a great memory. I know when I say we, Ricky stood beside me when we did the Big Train. He said, right here's where I want to sing, and Dave Edmonds and Marty Stewart, us 4, we had our little quartet. He set, when I say he, moments that just microphones all around the studio. It was as the record reveals, it was just a happy, high-spirited feeling. There was Sam Phillips, the man that started us all, standing next and singing.
Singing?
Is he singing? Jack Clements, the boy that produced a lot of hit records.
Well, Johnny Cash on one of the cuts says, and Jack Clements too.
That's what
Union Avenue.
Jack was sitting right there playing rhythm on the session.
Well, I'm just going to wrap it by saying this, Carl. It started out, future looked promising, the accident set you back, but I think along the way you'd agree that Carl Perkins had a lot of blessings, and may I welcome old blue suede shoes back.
Red, while you hold that hand, I want you to think about one thing. And I'd like to say to you, little fellow, little lady, wherever you are, don't get despondent. If you want to follow this music trail, don't think it's easy, but it's very well worth it. Give it all you got and then reach back and get a little more, and you can make it. And regardless to what it is, believe in the power, because that's where it's at. He loves you. I love you too. Thank you,
Carl. God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you.